rode motorcycles, dirt bikes my whole life, and every time I get a dirt bike, you know, I probably didn't do the right break-in cycle. I just kind of go, you know, as a kid, you just kind of don't give a shit. You just kind of romp on it however you want to, but if you really want your motorcycle to last a long time, you know, you can't just, as soon as you buy it, start romping on it, just goosing it all the time. So you really want to make sure you're, you know, not over-revving the engine, you're not lugging the engine around. So we're going to dive in talking about some of that stuff today. Guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe so you can catch more videos and stuff on the channel about this Indian Scout Road. We're going to be doing a ton of videos about this bike. It is just a great platform. It's an awesome, well-refined motorcycle. So first things first, you know, the owner's manual gives some specific guidelines, you know, such as idling. You don't want to idle this thing for a long period of time as soon as you get it, because idling can have a tendency to make the engine overheat, especially, you know, if you're just letting it sit there for long periods of time. So don't be idling this thing too long. I would say more than, you know, 5 minutes. I wouldn't try to, you know, start this thing up and just let it idle for that much. This doesn't make sense. So when it comes to giving this thing throttle, some guidelines on the throttle, and you can still go on rides and stuff, you know, even with some of these restrictions. With the first, I think it's like 120 miles or something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. I'll put some snippets of the owner's manual in here, so don't hammer me too hard for, you know, misspeaking on some of this. We're just out on a ride. I'm trying to go over some guidelines just roughly. So I think it's like the first 150 miles or something like that. You don't want to go more than a third of the throttle. So if you can imagine your throttle's fully closed versus fully open, you know, only going about a third of the way, and that being your max, is kind of what you want to do. You don't want to go any more than that, because you don't want to over rev your engine and cause your engine to not break in the proper way. Because the proper break-in cycle is going to ensure that your rings on your piston are seating properly to the cylinder walls. You're not getting any blow-by from pressures in the crankcase. You're not getting any engine oil blow-by. Everything is seating properly, and that's what you're kind of looking for, because that's going to make sure your engine runs properly over the long term, not just right now. You're probably not going to see any immediate effects of not proper break-in, but, you know, over the long term, you want your motorcycle to last. It's an investment, so you really want to key in on some of this stuff. So between that 150 and about 300, you want to keep it below half throttle. So if I'm looking at my throttle right now, that's fully closed. Half throttle is right there, and you can see I still have plenty of get up. If you're using your gears properly, you have plenty of range to get up to speed. You can go out on an interstate. You know, you can ride this thing around. You know, I would suggest not riding too long a distance though, because once again, you don't want your engine to overheat or get too extremely hot. So I would probably minimize rides to about 1 hour at the maximum, just to ensure you're not overheating or overloading your engine. So that 1 hour time frame should be good enough within that first, I would say, 500 miles. The next range you want to think about is between that 300 and 500 range. You can start giving it a little bit more throttle, get up to about 3/4 throttle, not quite wide open yet. And honestly, you know, I'm over the break-in period right now, and I don't really think I've gave it full wide open throttle yet. I just really don't need to. So that's one thing you got to look at right there. So just another good rule of thumb, kind of keep it in the back of your mind when you're doing the break-in on this, to make this motorcycle last as long as possible. Some other good rules of thumb, you know, don't over rev the engine. Meaning, if you can imagine this bike had a rev limiter on there or a red line, you don't want to be, you know, fully revving that thing out. It's not going to be good on your engine. So keep that down, once again, because within those throttle limits. That's going to make sure you're breaking that motorcycle in. And then another thing that a lot of people don't think of is lugging the engine around. So lugging the engine is, let's say you're in second gear and you're only going like 5 miles an hour, and you should probably be in first, and you're just lug it. That right there puts extra pressure on your transmission and your engine, and it's unnecessary when you should be using the proper gear. That right there can also make your engine not run as properly as it should. So just one thing to keep in mind on that. Make sure you're not lugging it around. Use the proper gear within this whole break-in period, and you're going to be just fine. Alright guys, this was just a quick rundown of some guidelines when it comes to breaking in your motorcycle. And you can use this for just about any motorcycle in this Indian lineup, but especially for the Scout. Just follow some of these. You know, don't overload your engine, don't rev it out, stay within the throttle guidelines. And once again, I'm going to leave a link also to the owner's manual so you can look at it yourself if maybe your bike didn't come with one, so you can look some of this stuff too. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Catch you in other videos.